Go back over 30 years though, from the time that the game, apart from being a game, that it was a contest, you know, because for the last 30 something years Kerry have just come up here, absolutely annihilated Dublin and went home smiling and said all sorts of nice things about them, and then absolutely stuffed them in almost all the games. And of course Pat being far too modest a man, as we know, every Sunday, and he played in 6 finals, and of course he won 5 of them against Dublin. So that has been the trend of Kerry-Dublin rivalry, and today we really need a good contest from Dublin.
And the extraordinary thing about it is Kerry won the following year again, 86 against Tyrone, and then we didn't see them for 11 years. Your own team was part of the ones that took over.
Yeah, we were lucky that we filled in a sort of a void between a couple of great teams who came along, and you know, oftentimes in a player's career, I often think,
not to be nostalgic, you know, when you think of Pat and those games and all, and you know, that sort of stops at 3:30 obviously, and it becomes a very clinical business. But yesterday, you know, I was just immersed in blue the whole day. Like, I started off watching the Kilmacud under-13s playing against Ballyboden, and you know, setting up the posts beforehand. I was with St Vincent's people all day, and then Elizabeth O'Leary and her son Kieran drove me over to St Vincent's, and we played a game, the Derry 93 team. Brian Mullins turned out for us. We had a great night in St Vincent's Club, you know, and I'm wearing...
Some legends of both counties joining me here. Bernard Dunn, former world boxing champion. Bernard, are you nervous? You've boxed in the O2, you've boxed in front of thousands. Are you nervous today?
So I'm more nervous now than I suppose I was going into the World Title fight, or when I got married, for that fact. You know, it's incredible to witness, you know, driving towards Croke Park today, the sea of blue all over the city. It's fantastic to see, and you know, it's great to see the support turning out for the boys.
Are you going to win this? And who's going to be the star for Dublin today?
You know, everybody's looking at the 2 Brogans. You know, it's going to be a team effort. You know, it's not about winning the majority of the battles. You're going to have to win, you know, 12, 13 out of 15 battles out there. I think individually they're all going to have to pull together and work hard. I'm sure Pat though has them mentally ready. You know, and that's going to be a big part today. You know, Kerry are going to get to a stage where they score 3, 4, 5 points in the trot, and it's going to be up to Dublin to make sure they don't lose the run of themselves.
Well, the other fella here beside me has done it all in the past. The great Mick O'Dwyer. Are you quietly confident, as they would say in Kerry, are you quietly confident that the Kingdom will win?
Well, we never come to Croke Park, as you know, but we're always confident when we come here. We always say this is our home ground. Croke Park is always our territory. We always play well here. But I think we're going to have a very good game today. This is a good young Dublin team. I don't think they're quite ready to win in All-Ireland just at the moment, but in a few years' time, I said they might be able to do that. But this is going to be our year. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
And who's going to be man of the match?
The what?
Who's going to be man of the match?
Man of the match, I said the Gooch will.
It's Kerry against Dublin. It's going to happen not just here, but on the pitch around 3:30.
It most certainly is. Marty Morrissey enjoying the build-up to this year's football final. But it's time now to get the views of 2 men who are in their dressing rooms right now and preparing to run out onto the pitch in a little while. That's Dublin's Alan Brogan and Kerry's Colm Cooper. Now, we met up with them a few days ago when they talked about their football careers and their football aspirations. Colm Cooper is hoping to captain his county to success today. Alan Brogan is hoping that there are, well, no divided loyalties in his household.
In County Kerry, I suppose it brings that little extra edge to it. I think she's probably nearly a dub at this stage. She's a long time up here, and obviously her 3 sons playing with Dublin too probably have a little bit to do with it. But I suppose in the back of her mind, she always, if it's not Dublin, it's Kerry. So I suppose she still holds her native county dear.
2010, there was a lot of disappointment, and the way we left the championship, it was a poor performance, and players just went away back to their clubs, and we met in January and we set out to try and get back to another All-Ireland final.
It was in the genes and always in the heart that Gaelic would be the game that we'd that we would play when we grew up. But I would have played soccer, basketball, all sorts of sports, any sport when I was a young lad. I suppose under 15, under 16, getting on the Dublin development squads, when it becomes serious, then that's the time you kind of have to choose. Are you gonna play soccer? Are you gonna play Gaelic football? And obviously, was always in my heart and in my head that I wanted to play Gaelic football.
I played a lot of soccer up until I was about 16, and I suppose the time came then to make a choice, and I suppose I've been pretty lucky that I made a good choice and have had a little bit of success from football. But I loved every sport really, but when push came to shove, it was time to make a decision, and Gaelic football was mine, and I think it's worked out pretty well so far.
there is a collective will there to reach an All-Ireland final, and I suppose when you reach it, you want to try and win it, but it's just been a goal of ours for so many years, and there's been a number of players there that have been like myself, have been there for 10 years. There has been some new lads that have come in. I suppose those lads have no fear, the likes of Michael Macaulay, Michael Fitzsimons. These guys don't know any different, all they know is to win.
This team, fortunately, have had a huge amount of hunger in them, and I actually think the players find it a privilege to play for a county like Kerry, with the tradition, with everything that has gone before, and I think that has spurred guys on to the achievement that they're there, and we just want to add to our collection.
I'm hoping it'll be a little bit more open than the Donegal game, but I think Kerry as well can put men behind the ball as well when needs be, like we can put men behind the ball when needs be. So I think it'll be quite tactical, whilst at the same time I would expect some good football to be played with the sets of forwards on both teams.
I think it'll be a tight, tough game, and I think coming into the last 5-10 minutes, it's going to be all to play for, and I think the 80,000 will get their money's worth in Croke Park.
They're great footballers, great talent, and they've huge experience in that dressing room now, and that's going to be a huge factor for them today. Going to be an uphill struggle for us with the strength and depth they have, but we'll give it one hell of a shot.
Just every time you go to Croke Park, the place inspires me in a way. It's just a wonderful setting and surrounding, and it's just Croke Park, really, that factor. That's the place to do it for football, and it's just somewhere I've enjoyed playing all the years I've been there.
My dream was always to play in an All-Ireland final and to try win an All-Ireland final with Dublin, and there's lots of kids around the city now who have the same dreams in the last number of weeks, kicking around watching us preparing for an All-Ireland final. So it would be huge for the city, and I think it would be huge for Gaelic football as well. But look, Kerry's standing our way. We know the dominant force they are. It's going to be a huge challenge for us.
It's great, you know, to get back to an All-Ireland final with your county, and particularly a county like Kerry with so much success and tradition that's been there. To lead your team out in Croke Park and All-Ireland final, it's every player's dream, and I have no exception there. And look, the ultimate will be if you get the opportunity to go on and win that game and win it with the buddies that you've played with for the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah, that's Dublin's Alan Brogan and Kerry's Colm Cooper. The interesting thing, Colm, O'Rourke, about this is, as you well know, a number 13, Colm obviously captain of Kerry today, has never lifted the Sam Maguire's captain.
Yeah, and I was number 13 captain in 1990, and unfortunately I didn't get the opportunity to collect Sam. But it's
and
like
you were telling me that you were
else.
actually aware of that at the time.
I was aware, I was made aware of it at the time, but you know, it didn't really bother me, or nothing about it worried me, because you know, everybody has to create their own bit of history, and there's always a first for everything. But I would say that it's a massive incentive for the Kerry players and for the Kerry people who would love to see Colm Cooper captain an All-Ireland winning team, because he's really the jewel in the crown, so it would be great to see him lifting the cup.
This was the team, as Pat arriving just a little bit earlier on. The Kerry team we just saw a moment ago, Pat Gilroy going through, and Mickey Whelan there, of course, part of the backroom team. And as we keep saying about these things, these are actually talking about omens and all that kind of stuff. Dublin are in what they call here in Croke Park the lucky dressing room. It's where all the winners this year have been, including Kilkenny in the hurling final.
Yeah, but you know, well, Kilkenny have 15 brilliant hurlers, which probably contributes.
But records are there to be broken. I think it's also number 7 has never captained a team to win an All-Ireland football as well. A left half back.
This is becoming ridiculous, lads.
It is, yeah. Look, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yes.
What is that? If a fella has his foot in a bucket of boiling water and his other foot in a bucket of cold water, statistically speaking, he's comfortable, isn't it? So, sorry, don't we don't. I tell you this, there's no Kerry fella worrying about.
The reality of it is that people are looking for something to give them a pointer as to who's going to win today. No, because you talk to football experts, one person will say Kerry will win it by 5 points, the next person will think, oh no, Dublin will win it by 5 points.
Well, there's really no such thing as a football expert. You know,
well, this is the difficult.
You know, people seem to think, you know, there's a sort of a professor of punditry, and that type of thing. But in fact, one opinion's as valid as the other. You know, I mean, I was in the bar till late last night, and I must say I heard many more interesting contributions, you know, than I've heard on the programme here, particularly from Pat.
That's under the influence, Joe.
Well, I accept that.
But it's interesting. I mean, you can. I mean, and it's not an exact science, and it's very subjective and whatever. And you go back to the All-Ireland hurling final, and you say Tipperary raging hot favourites, and you can account for form up to this final. And one thing you can't account for is the intensity and the hunger in players. It's something that you can't drill into. You can't predict whether there will be. Playing with intensity and hunger. I mean, that day in the All-Ireland hurling final, Kilkenny played with such intensity, such hunger. It was amazing. You think these guys had never won an All-Ireland medal. And it's a bit like that with Kerry today. People will say Dublin will have the intensity and the hunger. That's one thing in their favour because they haven't been in an All-Ireland final since 1995. None of these guys have All-Ireland medals. But that's not... The psyche of a Kerry footballer is you're only as good as your last game. To them, last year was a failure. They didn't deliver in All-Ireland, and they're driven this year. They will be as hungry and they will play as intense as the Dubs today. They want that All-Ireland medal as much as they wanted their first.
And until Dublin lift that Sam Maguire, that is the question, Colin, that will still be asked about them. Mentally on the day, will they cope, as Pat said?
Yeah, it's a millstone around their necks, and they failed in the league final when they were in a great position, 7 or 8 points up against Cork, and then fell flat on their face in the last quarter of an hour of the game. You know, so obviously the questions will be marked. But you know, I said before, you know, there comes a time when everybody has to create their own piece of history, whether it's a number 13 or number 7, the captain's All-Ireland winning team. You know, you just have to go out and do it, and you put all of these things out of your mind. And if you're a really good player, you know, all the sideshows, all the distractions, you know, they just all pass away once you get on the pitch, and then all you focus on the game. And you know, I often played in All-Irelands where, you know, when you be completely focused, I didn't notice that it rained, or I didn't notice the crowd and things like that. You know, you get so absorbed in the game, and that's the way a player has to be.
I ran into Owen Kelly outside, you know, the great Owen Kelly from Tipperary. You know, he's no size at all. It's amazing, you know, how small he is, but like a panther, you know. And I was talking to him about what happened to him in the first 15 minutes against Kilkenny when they lost the game, really, in that first 10-15 minutes. And he just said, you know, we just didn't hit the ground running, and you've got to hit the ground running in an All-Ireland final. You know,
but you saw there, Joe, in that everybody commented on the Tipperary warm-up, and everybody seemed to be very relaxed. Now, if Tipperary had to win the game, everybody said this is the way to win the game, nice and relaxed. Whereas Kilkenny were really taught.
He was talking about mentally, you know, about you've got to hit the ground running. And particularly in a game like this today for the Dubs, it's vital that they do more so than Kerry, because we know what Kerry are like on All-Ireland final day. They look different. They walk taller. Their body language is brilliant, you know, and they concentrate from the first moment. They have no distractions.
Michael, might I say that Tipperary have just won the All-Ireland Minor Football Championship, which is an absolutely massive achievement. Complete underdogs against the raging hot favourites, and it just goes. It's just reinforcing the dream and the romanticism that I have about Gaelic. That within any county, if you give them the skill level, give them the belief, give them the coaching programme, that you can nurture young Mullinogh against Tukikse. Tipperary County Board are an example of how you can achieve success in football by starting at grassroots level and work you through. They've won an All-Ireland Minor, their second ever All-Ireland Minor football title, and I'll tell you this, they'll be seriously threatening in senior level in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's some turnaround for Dublin, you know, given that the Galway Minors hammered their hurlers, the Galway under-21s. Now they've lost this game. It's a series of very...
It's also a big blow for some of the lads who were on that Dublin minor team, of course. 4 or 5 of them were also on the hurling minor team. But just to confirm, Tipperary then are the 2011 minor football champions. Just a few moments ago here, they defeated Dublin.
To manage players individually and collectively, you know, the period of success of 6-7 years of a Dublin team wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that.
I suppose Mika was a bit more fortress in Kerry, that he had probably a lot of talent at his disposal at the time. They were very, very young. But again, it took a lot of management as well, something like Heffa, you know. But I think the two of them would have much the same attributes when it comes to managing teams and players.
And all danger for Dublin there. The ball breaking loose on the wing. It's a goal! It's a goal by John Egan.
I had no doubt whatever, but they were going to win this one. I know.
Like, what was the thing we'll say of the Kerry team in '75 that kind of was a surprise year? You know, like that team, I remember I was actually playing the minor final that day, so I couldn't look at that from the stand.
The only way I can explain what Kerry brought to that was attitude. Like, there's no doubt that we leveraged off and springboarded off that attitude to come back in '76 and '77, and we learned an awful lot from those defeats about ourselves and about the opposition.
But to lose, like, you really have to lose something, and it really has to hurt you, I think, to actually make you a better athlete to come back again.
The '76 game was definitely special. It was our chance to get back at Kerry. It went through the goalie's legs, and I couldn't believe it. But that was my dream. I won an All-Ireland.
I think it's every young kid's dream, isn't it? To play in All-Ireland #1 and then to score a goal in the final probably caps off everything, really.
And I got man of the match as well.
The 77 semi-final, that was my first championship game playing against Young Crow Park. And I often tell this story that I remember in the second half there was a kick out from the canal end. Paddy O'Mahony, I think, was in goal, and he kicked the ball out. And I was going for the ball, you know, as a midfielder, like you kind of eye up the ball, you're saying, I'm going to get my hands to this ball now, you know, and there I go, and I jump up, just ready to put my hands in the ball. Next thing I got it, bang. What I remember is looking up and seeing this blondie hair fella just taking off with the ball going in towards goal.
So I had the ball?
You had the ball, yeah. I remember looking at you and saying, I have to beef up for this man next year. Do you remember in '78 you were leading by 6 or 7 points, and like you looked like you were all over us.
Yes.
I remember Robbie at one stage was up in the 21-yard line going to have a shot
But
at
Jack,
goal.
sorry, we were all over you,
You were
for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
for
and
10
actually,
minutes.
I think you know, a lot of people talk about Mikey Sheehy's goal that they turned the game, but I thought it was the goal we got before that.
Oh yeah, John.
That
John
Bomber
Lee,
actually came out into the middle of the field. He jumped, I think, actually with you.
This is all listed. Pass the ball out now to Jack O'Shea. Jack O'Shea right through there. The pass went out to John Egan. And Cullen has come out. And Cullen has come out. And it's a goal.
We're both similar in that we had the same view of that play, because it wasn't me he jumped with, it was Sean Doherty who jumped with. And I was watching instead of keeping my eye on you, and you were gone.
I blame you for losing all my hair, you know that?
To play in 9 All-Ireland finals was just unbelievable. And luck doesn't adequately describe, I'm searching for a word, to have had the opportunity and the good fortune to be involved with what I would equate to being an odyssey of life.
Like I played in 8 senior finals, and
won every one of them.
Won 7. Last one to Offaly in '82. And but you know, it is a privilege when you look back and say, I have been there, I've done that, and nobody can ever take that away from you.
It took a long time to meet you, Jack, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did.
I'm still sore after it.
And you're not alone, I'd say. Brian Mullins and Jack O'Shea there, of course. Pat, I was talking to Tony Hanaho and Mick O'Dwyer during the week there, and one of the things that Tony was saying that he just slightly regretted the fact that in the 70s that Dublin team were just beginning to come to maybe the end of, for some of them anyway, of their era, and you guys were just getting into your stride.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and you know, it goes back to something that Colm mentioned earlier on. There's a lot of an element of luck that we had luck in Kerry where 15 great footballers happened to come along at the same time, 18 to 20 years of age. And we met in '75, we played the Dubs in '75, and the Dubs were a seasoned bunch. We were in, like I said, in the early 20s.
Played in the minor match the year
he did,
before,
he was in the
he?
minor final, and the Dubs were much older. So I mean, those first couple, we were a coming team. They were slightly going past, but you know, just like I mean, we had great, like I said, we had great matches against the Dubs, and I had privilege to play with Brian Mullins in college and PE College in Limerick, and played with Jacko. They were two absolutely fantastic midfielders, and what they were warriors. They were the guys when the chips were down. Sister Concilio games, it was the filthiest game ever, where the ball was absolutely forgotten about. But the two teams went at each other hammer and tongs, and we came off the field that day saying, we lay down a marker, we can take them on physically. We learned from the previous two, and we never looked back after that. But it's a fair point, because we were a younger, fresher team. I mean, we played the Dubs teams in '85, '84 and '85, and they were quite poor Dublin teams.
Yeah. OK, time now to hear from the Kerry manager, that's Jack O'Connor. He's now, of course, in his second term as the man in charge of the kingdom. Now, both stints have produced All-Ireland titles, and that clearly is the ambition again today.
Ball inside. It's a chance for Poland. It's the back of the net. It's downstay in Croke Park, because Kerry have to...
By definitely a hungrier down team in the quarter-final last year. I think these fellas, you know, even though they've been on the road a long time, maybe for the first time after missing out on the final last year, they really appreciated what it was about. And maybe if you're on the road that long and you're reaching finals, you might take it a little bit for granted, but they certainly didn't take it for granted this year, and I think that showed in the way they applied themselves.
Darren O'Sullivan is going for it! What a cracker!
We had one great performance against Cork. We played great football for 35 minutes inside here in Killarney, and you know, struggled a bit in the second half because Cork threw the kitchen sink at us. The other games, I suppose, were pretty much routine. Now, the Mayo game, Mayo certainly gave a good account of themselves and really put it up to us for stages in that game. And there's still the idea, I suppose, in a lot of people's heads that we haven't been tested properly. And I think we'll be tested. We'll be tested in the final now. It is a good Dublin team, and I mean, Gilroy has done a great job with them. From the ashes of the defeat 2 years ago in the quarter-final, he's really built a serious unit, and you know, he started from the back. They did produce the best performance of the year against Tyrone, no question about that. I mean, our first half display, I suppose, against Cork might match it, but for consistency over 70 minutes, that was the best display. Now, it was 7 weeks ago, and you'd be hoping that maybe that curve might have flattened out a bit since then.
On towards Timmy Dowd. Can he get a goal? Yes!
You know, it's a glamorous final, no question about it. I mean, you know, all along, I suppose, at the back of our minds, we were kind of hoping we'd meet the Dubs in an All-Ireland final, because there's great romance in that pairing, and playing them in front of a big house, a full house with Hill 16 packed with blue, there's something fantastic about that. And I think maybe at this stage of the players' careers, I think that's the challenge they need. And we're just hoping they'll respond to it. I mean, when it goes down the history books about how many All-Irelands you won, there isn't going to be an asterisk beside it saying, well, that one was against Mayo or that one was against somebody else. You know, they're all won on merit. And of course, this would be a great one to win in the sense that it's the Dubs, and you're playing them in their own backyard in front of, you know, probably 50,000 Dubs. But they're all nice, I tell you. They're all nice.
Yeah, the thoughts of the Kerry manager, Jack O'Connor. Let's hear next from his counterpart in Dublin, Pat Gilroy. Now, Pat, of course, was a member of the Dublin panel when the county last won the All-Ireland in 1995. Now, clearly, he would love to repeat that achievement as a manager.
Do this, it's a huge honour, and it may never come around again. So once the family were happy and work were happy, then, you know, it was a no-brainer for me. If I hadn't had the backroom team and I had at the time, I certainly wouldn't have attempted to do it. But it was something that attracted me, because I thought that, you know, there was a lot of talent there, and we'd have a fair chance of pushing the team on. I think we wanted to achieve a lot more consistency than we had done through league and championship. I think our league form had been patchy. The team had played some great matches over the previous time, and there had been great strides being made, and I think it was just trying to build on that. I wanted us to play good football, but sensible football. So, you know, there's two sides of the football, you know, when you're attacking and when you're defending, and I wanted us to be equally good at both. After the first year, I thought we played some great attacking football, but our defending wasn't great. We probably put a much bigger emphasis last year on defending, and I think this year we're getting a better balance. I suppose we would all, anyone involved in WGA would realise that, you know, we should be in more finals than we have been, and it's where we want to be in the future. Since 2002, we've been building back towards getting into finals and have been strong in Leinster, and, you know, hopefully now we can stay on the All-Ireland stage for a few years. I mean, that's what you get involved for. I mean, the reality of once you enter this sport, you're going to lose more than you win unless you're in an exceptional team. So, you know, when you get the wins, you do really appreciate them.
They've come back strongly. The Dubs don't care how they managed to reach the final.
That was an unbelievable battle. I mean, if I look at the way the guys have had to recover since then, you know, it was a phenomenal battle of will between both teams, and it might not have been easy on the eye for people, but certainly in terms of a pure battle, you know, you're not going to get much better than it.
Brian Sheehan for Kerry. O'Sullivan, oh, that was absolutely brilliant.
They're a top-class team, you know, between them and Tyrone. They've been the two best teams over the last 10 years, and they've outstanding players. The one thing that's really good about Kerry is that you can't really focus on one guy, and you can't build your plan around one guy and them stopping one guy, because there's so many of them are that good.
Jeremy Connolly on the turn. Oh, this is brilliant. Here comes Dublin. Here comes Brogan. Here comes sheer utter class.
My main concern now really is that we get a really big performance out of ourselves in this game, and if we do our absolute best, it's not good enough. I can live with that, you know, and we exited last year's championship that way. if that happens this year, I wouldn't be unhappy. I mean, naturally we want to win, but it's really important that we get out here and perform.
That's the Dublin manager, Pat Gilroy. Colin, we'll talk about Pat in just a moment, but I suppose we better give people a bit of a weather update here at Croke Park, although that's difficult to do because every time you look out the window it's something different. The sun was shining a minute ago. Now it's been raining, and raining, it seems to me, fairly heavily at times, so it can be slippy down there.
And the pitch gets very, very slippy, and I suppose maybe the Dublin backs would prefer that, but good players perform in any conditions. But I often think that wet surface here in Croke Park doesn't suit the very tall players, that it suits smaller players more. But a gifted forward will adapt to the conditions, and oftentimes they will do better because they'll be able to turn their men much easier.
Didn't do any harm to the miners of Tipperary, who's saying, who've just been celebrating their All-Ireland success. Let me come back to Pat Gilroy. I know Pat, he's a very solid, kind of no-nonsense kind of guy.
Yeah.
What for you does he bring to this Dublin setup?
Well, I think Pat Gilroy has done a most brilliant job as manager of Dublin, because it's a difficult job, and what he's had to do is he's changed a lot of players and changed the habits of a lifetime with the players, and the two best examples of that, I think, are Alan and Bernard Brogan, who he has got to play very much as part of the team. I know they stray offside occasionally and they do maybe some silly things, but they have become an integral part of the team ethic, and that's the greatest strength that any manager can bring to a team, is where he can get everybody to play together. The other thing he's done is he's rearranged his whole back line really from 2 years ago when they got the mauling here from Kerry, and he has them working to a system. Again, it wasn't easy, and Mead put 5 goals past them, and everybody said, you know, this is a mess. I was here when they played Tipperary in a qualifier, and there was people on Hill 16 with signs Gilroy out, and he stuck to his guns, and he seems to be a sort of a person who's happy in himself, knew that he was doing the right thing and stuck by it even when others were questioning him.
I was in school with him in Trinity. You know, he's a decision maker.
Yes.
You know, he's decisive and he's in charge. And the players have to.
He's a businessman. He runs his own business, and you have to bring a bit of that, I suppose.
I understand, but he also has a deep, deep love of the Gaelic games and of Dublin football and Vincent's and all of his heritage and all of that. But whenever you're going to bring in the sort of drastic changes that he brought in, you know, after they were humiliated by Kerry, and begin to build a defensive system and then to try and find a balance, you must be decisive or you'll lose the players very quickly, or the team will turn into a rabble. And he hasn't done that, and I think that they have now achieved that balance. It's the best balance that they can achieve. The only issue now is whether, as he quite rightly identifies, they will perform today.
OK, we're headed for another break here in the programme. When we come back, we'll be taking you through the team from Pat Spillane, and also including Pat, who we forget sometimes, Mick Galway.
Yeah, Mick Galway, thankfully from an Irish rugby point of view, that Mick realised that he didn't have much of a future as a Gaelic footballer.
Was he not much good? Seriously,
Mick was an average midfielder, but I think he made the right choice in choosing rugby. But you know, that was the team, that was the majority of the team who had lost the 5 in a row, and people would say there's an awful lot of similarity between the Kilkenny and the Kerry and the losing. When we lost 5 in a row, I think fellas regrouped and said, right, we want to go out on a high. If they'd won the 5 in a row, it would have been over, but they came back. But look, we won the All-Ireland finals in 85 and 86. The standard was quite
Let's talk about the game, lads. Seriously.
I want to give a quick mention, by the way, to Father Alex.
And there's a wonderful atmosphere here down the sideline. That rain hasn't diluted the enthusiasm of the two players beside me, two former players, Declan O'Keefe, former Kerry goalkeeper, and Jason Sherlock, the darling of Hill 16 that's right here behind us. Declan, are you nervous? Are you anticipating this to be a Kingdom victory?
I'm quietly confident, Marty. Funny enough, I was talking to Darragh O'Shea outside there on the street, and I was a lot more nervous 2 years ago when we were playing Cork, but I suppose that's a Cork thing, but I'd be quietly confident. You know, I suppose to quote Declan Kidney yesterday, he said forwards win matches, backs decide by how much, and I think the Kerry forwards today, if we can get it going around the middle of the field, I think the Kerry forwards will decide how much we'll win this game by.
Confident words. What do you think, Jason? I checked the Dublin dressing room, by the way, no changes.
No, but I know there is a worry about Paul Flynn. Obviously, he had the hamstring injury. He is going to start, and he will have a big factor on the game. It's the first time that Dublin have played 6 on 6 on the defence, so they will need to have some sort of protection from the midfield and the half forward. So Paul Flynn's inclusion is vital.
Tell me about the weather, because we've had a terrible shower towards the end of that minor game. Does that influence a forward or a goalkeeper more?
Well, I'd always feel a bit of dew on the sod helps a forward, you know, because it does help kind of the quicker, more skillful players. Hopefully that's the end of the rain. So yeah, there's no excuses. Like using the terminology, there's no excuses out there. Both teams are going to go out and give it their best, and they made the best team win.
Declan, in terms of Stephen Cluxton, do you think Kerry are going to have that plan that they employed 2 years ago again to make sure the short kickouts don't work?
Yeah, they're going to have to push up on Cluxton's kick-outs. They did that very effectively in 2009. But in fairness to Stephen Cluxton in Dublin, there's more variety now in their kick-outs. He's going longer, he's going to the wing half-forwards more. So there's more variation there. And like Kerry definitely have to target that, you know, because we need to get a foothold around the middle of the field to get quality ball into our forward. So hopefully that will happen, Marty.
Last word to you, Jason. A lot of pressure, long time since you won an All-Ireland medal. Are Dublin going to do it?
Yeah, well, obviously it's too long, in my opinion, that Dublin have been in an All-Ireland final. It's a 17-point turnaround in 2 years. That's what Dublin are looking to do. There's no questions. The blueprint of the Dublin game plan has been in essence since that defeat. So that's going to be their big challenge. And obviously the first half is going to have a lot to do with that. If we can contain Kerry early on, you never know. We might even sneak one later on in the game.
The battle will start on the field very shortly. Jason Sherlock, Declan O'Keefe, thank you very much for joining us. The teams will be out very shortly. In the meantime, back to you, Michael.
There's no doubt about that. And one of the things about this final that strikes me as being different is during the week, today for example, a couple of neighbours that was leaving the house out in South County Dublin were wishing me well coming to the final, which normally they wouldn't do, obviously. You know, they're saying best of luck today. Yeah. During the week I was in a shop, the shopkeeper was talking so much he left me a tenner short in the change. Yeah. Everybody is talking about this final. The question is, who's going to win it?
Well, the romance is about to come to an end. You know, I mean, Kerry came into Croke Park as young romantics in 2003 and were dumped on their arses by a most unromantic Tyrone. And that has been the only team to beat them in a big final like this. And one of the problems when you're facing Kerry, and we've seen it so often, in a final the ball is thrown in, they hit the ground running. There's an electricity through them. And the reason that Tyrone, apart from all the other gifts that they had, the reason that they beat Kildare or Kerry was they didn't give a damn about them. They didn't care about them. They played their own game and they focused to the bitter end. That's the big issue for the Dubs, I think, because, you know, there'll be a... You know, there's bound to be a fear factor in the older Dublin players who've had the hammer-ins and all of that. The younger crew look a lot more solid and play very, very calmly. But that's a big issue against Kerry. And unless Dublin put that fear factor to the back of their mind, you know, they will be beaten handsomely today. I think that that's not going to happen. You know, they've got a very pronounced defensive system, not as bad as Donegal, obviously, but a very pronounced defensive system. And interestingly, Enda McGinley said to me during the week, the Tyrone man, and he's had seen them all at close quarters. He said he's convinced that Dublin will win. He said because they'll smash and disrupt. They're going to be very, very defensive. I think a key question is whether or not Dublin will employ a sweeper in front of Brogan, because I can't see them continuing with the high wire act that they performed against Mayo, leaving Mark Boucher entirely on his own.
Well, the point that Joe makes is entirely correct, you know, that when a game starts, an All-Ireland final, it becomes natural for Kerry just to go out and play. Dublin have to have the game in a very structured way, and they're under a certain amount of pressure how to perform this structured defence, and they must get through the first 10 or 15 minutes, certainly without conceding a goal. If they concede goals in the first quarter, well then,
disaster. You know. We got a spectacular example, Colin, yesterday morning of what a team can do when they set their mind to it. I mean, going into the yesterday morning game, Australia were one of the greatest things since Blackpool, and of course they are, there's no doubt about that. We went out and beat them.
Yeah, but in saying that too, I think that Irish rugby team has some of the most focused and some of the... If you could get Meath to the point where every player on the Meath team would be able to be focused in their approach the way the Irish rugby team, you could do anything.
But Michael, what you had there, the reason why Ireland were successful yesterday morning was...
the attacking cornerbacks that they used to pick.
But this team under Gilroy are solid guys. They've bought into this work ethic, into this... You know, they're honest to good. They give 100%, and all you look for is honesty and effort out of players. And what they have now, the Dubs, is they have character, they have belief, and they have composure. And you saw it 3 times this year, though, Colin. You saw it. They went down to 14 men against Kildare. They went down against Wexford, and they went down to 14 men against Donegal, and they never lost sight of their game plan. They never lost their composure, and that's a great starting point.
But the biggest single thing I think any team has to have, inspiring individuals on the team. Because when you go to war, as the General says, the plans go out the window.
Yes.
And then you have to have individuals like Brian O'Driscoll or Paul O'Connell or Ronan O'Gara, people who can do it on the day and they can do it off the cuff. Kerry have shown in the past that they have any number of those type of players. It's today will reveal what can Dublin have those sort of heroes.
Do you think, Pat, that there's in all of those successes and all of those great Kerry teams, that this is also a defining game for some of those players today? Because we've seen over the last year or two, you know, the Darragh O'Shea's moving on and so forth, and
you were spot on. We alluded to it earlier on. Kerry won in All-Ireland in 1986. They didn't win in All-Ireland until 1997, and you saw the lads there. It was predominantly the boys that had been there from the 70s and 80s. They were playing on memory, you know, but they were good enough to get through. This team is not as good as they were. They're in the twilight years of their playing career, a lot of them. If Kerry lose today, certainly there will be, Tomas will probably go, there'll be 4 or 5, 6 fellas, Tom O'Sullivan, Aidan O'Mahony, they'll go. And I can tell you this, and I know from, you look at the record of Kerry, particularly at minor level, at under 21 level, there isn't a calibre of player there that's going to replace these great players. Defeat today for Kerry, I think, will be a major blow, because I think it could see Kerry out of the All-Ireland equation for maybe a few years to come. Not the 11-year famine that we suffered 86 to 97, but I think if you look at the calibre of players, some of the players on the subs bench there, it's probably one of the poorest subs benches ever that have sat on a Kerry subs bench for an All-Ireland final.
the gods of romance, Joe Brolly, don't always write the script for these things, but a lot of neutrals said they'd love to see Colin Cooper captain the Kerry team.
Well, I mean, none of that really makes any difference to somebody like Colin Cooper. I mean, the thing about Kerry is that with Jack O'Connor, who's a bit of a cold fish himself, the team has now got a cold, ruthless side. They defend much better in a much more modern way. You know, they fall back and hold their leads when they need to. They're much more clinical than they were. And they have a terrific chemistry. Above all, they've got a great chemistry. The possession statistics for their championship run would be similar to Barcelona's possession. They hold the ball. I mean, I was talking to one of the down players, Conor Laverty, outside, and he played both teams in the league this year, Dublin and Kerry. And he said the problem with Kerry is they don't give the ball away. They hold possession, they kick it, they move it around, they play in space. The other thing about them is they're well used to playing against sweepers now. And we saw, and I appreciate that Dublin are far superior to Mayo in terms of their intensity. But we saw the way Kerry threw the ball around, moved, you know, just sort of pushed Mayo all over the place, and then shot from distance, played inside. You know, they're very versatile.
That side, that banner you saw up there, the Jacks are back. The first time I saw that Colin O'Rourke was in 1974.
Yes.
Dublin against Galway, and unfortunately they were right then.
Yeah, well, it's a good opportunity, and you know, there is no better promotional tool than the Sam Maguire to go around the schools. In Kerry, they're fed up doing it, and I can see where a lot of
you'll never get fed up doing it.
A lot of neutrals would love to see it going around, say, schools in Dublin, and it would convince people maybe that Gaelic football, as distinct from other games, is a pursuit. And that's why I talk about Dublin need heroes, and to have heroes, you need to have a calmness of approach. And it does look as if Pat Gilroy has brought that. Like, the players are able to go out and express
Why do you say, Colin, why do you think that the game is promoted by Dublin winning the Senior All-Ireland? Go to any of those clubs, Kilmacud, Ballyboden, all of those clubs, St Vincent's, the massive work that's been done, the massive numbers participating. Surely that's how you promote the game.
Here they come, lads. Here come Dublin.
Statistics will show that there's quite a low participation rate in Dublin of young people in Gaelic games. That's the point I'm making.
Derry won in All-Ireland. It made absolutely no difference to promotion of the game in the county.
No, but Joe, why Dublin's success? For Dublin to win the All-Ireland wouldn't be great so much for the game, because the game Kerry bring so much qualities to the game again. But for the sport, for GA, you have a quarter of the country's population. The country's media is based here, so it would certainly raise the profile of Gaelic. And like Colin says, there are great GA clubs in Dublin, but there are a lot of territory around Dublin where there's no GA being played at all.
But as a matter of logic, that can't be right, Pat. Because if you look at it, they were in the minor finals, football and hurling, under 21 final in the hurling, they're in the senior final in the football. That surely means that massive strides are taking place, and I've seen it for myself in Dublin. They're underage as magnificent.
I go back, but I go back.
This is sort of an icing on the cake rather than something that galvanises.
1974, when Dublin had been out of the picture for years, Jimmy Keaveney was almost brought out of retirement to come back into that team. It did make a difference because Dublin went on for the rest of the 70s to be a huge part.
It was just one team.
And here come your county. Do you still feel a sense of pride when you see them running out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, absolutely. You know, it's, you know, people say it's a religion in Kerry. It's part of what we are. It's part of the psyche. I mean, every Kerry person that bought a ticket for today's game had to automatically contribute €10 to the players' training fund. They don't. Last weekend, outside the church gates of every church in Kerry, we were collecting money for the team. They do us proud. It's what we are.
It must be the greatest privilege or honour in the world to be giving your county's jersey to run out on an All-Ireland final.
For a Kerry person, it's like a young lad growing up in New Zealand wants to be an All Black. A fella in South Wales wants to wear the Welsh jersey. In Kerry, a young lad wants to wear the Kerry jersey.
It's no different than any other county. I mean, I felt the same in Derry. You know, whenever we were sort of whipping boys, it was a great honour to put on your county jersey. It's the same everywhere. You know, I don't buy into this that it's better for one county to win an All-Ireland than another county. I think that makes no difference at all. I can never see the sense of it.
In the commentary box this afternoon, Ger Canning and Martin Carney. Let's hand over to them right now to take you through the team formations.
Michael, when these two teams last met in competitive action, most of the country was at home watching their TV, studying the results of the general. Who are you focusing on, Martin?
Well, I like to focus today, Ger, on Stephen Cluxton. Like, since making his debut against Longford in 2001, he's grown into a goalkeeper who is assured, who is confident, and who commands his area. To be a source of great reassurance to Kerry to know that they have a player of Colin Cooper's calibre in their team. Apart from his skills and his balance and his finishing ability, he possesses a wonderful big match temperament. He has won 4 All-Irelands, Ger, and in those 4 All-Irelands he has scored 3 goals and 18 points.
Reaching the All-Ireland final, but their forward line have much improved as a unit, and I think in particular their half-forward line. Again, they're
He touched turn to gold against Tyrone, but I thought in the game against Donegal he looked as if he was losing the cool a bit even long before he was sent off in that game. And you know, any flaw in a player's temperament is exposed big time on a day like this today. So I hope Connolly has learned from that, because if he hasn't, he will become very, very soon detached from the play. It's going to be a big test for him now, mentally as much as physically.
You couldn't take anything out of the Donegal game, though. I mean, I was talking to Van Larkin outside, and he said to me, how many Donegal All-Stars do you think there'd be? And I said, you know, I think that 13 Donegal players should share the right cornerback slot.
Well, I think there's I would agree in a sense, but I think nothing is farther from the truth that Dublin have.
Kerry today, he'll rank up there with the greatest of all managers, and he came in at his greatest achievement, I think, is that he's managed to keep these guys so focused, you know, for years. Because these guys, some of these guys would be, you know, they'd enjoy life, and discipline might be a problem with them at times. He's kept them very disciplined. He's kept them very focused. He's kept them very fresh. And this year, the big addition this year is he's brought Donny Buckley, who was the coach to Limerick, into the training setup, and the players are all saying how fresh the approach to training is. Buckley is brilliant. His drills are magnificent. He's brilliant in defensive and in his tackling drills. He's a guy who thinks outside the box. And Kerry this year, like I said, are a lot more focused. Last year they were cranky. Last year they were worried about the Sunday game and the CCs, TVs, and everyone was wronging them. This year they're focused, they're fitter, they're more determined, and they want to finish on a high.
And also, that's an important point about the backroom team, because we're inclined to talk the media.
At the very end of 70 minutes here, 122nd All-Ireland final gets underway, and it's Kerry who take the possession. Anthony Marr losing it, stolen from him by Michael Dara McCauley, linking up here with James McCarthy. Held on to well in there by Diarmuid Connolly. Slippery conditions, back towards Paul Flynn from 45 metres out. Has Alan Brogan going in there pursuing that one. In there as well was Killian Young, and the umpire has waved it wide. The umpire down there is Jimmy Galligan. Just have a look at this again here to see who did get the final touch. Hard to tell.
Hard to tell.
Interesting to see how both sets of players attack the goalkeeper's kickouts in this match. Probably more so than normally is the case. Kerry hold on to it here. Owen Brosnan, about whom there was a concern, sends it neatly down to Donncha Walsh. James McCarthy slow in getting back to him. Donncha Walsh leaving it off to Darren O'Sullivan. This man has got tremendous speed inside here, and it's Fisty. Declan O'Sullivan credited with the opening point of the match. Wonderful assist pass. Swift move by Kerry, lovely coordination here. Darren O'Sullivan sending it into Declan O'Sullivan, and a brilliant score by Kerry.
And it all stemmed from Kieran Donaghy winning a ball out around the middle of the field, Donaghy is at midfield, Declan O'Sullivan is full forward, and Darren O'Sullivan is playing at centre half forward.
Which was anticipated that he would run at Cher Brennan from that kick out. It's taken once again by Kerry. This time Anthony Marr needing a second touch. Dished off to Darren O'Sullivan. Quick look up then, and Kerry just hold the possession. O'Sullivan once again, while he was looking for Kieran O'Leary, finding instead Cian O'Sullivan. By the way, Cian O'Sullivan and Vic Fitzsimons have switched their numbers, switched their jerseys. So Fitzsimons is 2, Sullivan is 4, and not as they were programmed. That's something that happened also when the teams met here in the league at the end of February. Same 2, well, not same 2. Alan Hubbard was one of the quarterbacks, but Fitzsimons was the other one that night, and they also switched their jerseys. Not quite sure if it's a superstition. Here's Mark O'Shea to his brother Tomas. Held on to by Anthony Marr, his 3rd possession in this final. Look where Kieran Donaghy's come. They leave 3 inside. Need to get the ball in. Donaghy holds it. Pat McEnany, the linesman, had a look at it, so the ball was still in play. Down towards Declan O'Sullivan. Rory O'Carroll going across there to try and keep him out on the margins. O'Sullivan got by, dished it back. Darren O'Sullivan held on to here by Brian Sheehan. Beautiful ball into Owen Brosnan, used to play on the half forwards, lost it. Great recovery challenge that time. Cian O'Sullivan got in. Back up as far as Alan Brogan. Dublin trying to mount a meaningful attack. Beautifully in as far as Diarmuid Connolly, kicking it off the left. Oh, well taken down by Brendan Keeley. Many another goalkeeper might have given up on that one and tapped it over the bar for security purposes. Tomas O'Shea, slack marking. Donegal Walsh picks it up again. 65 metres out from the Kerry goal, pursued there by Brian Cullen. Still holds it. One man to aim at. Down there it's Declan O'Sullivan. Lost it. Taken by Brian Cullen. Fed back here as far as Cian O'Sullivan once more. Lobbed as far as Dennis Bastick. Now Michael Dara McCauley, the Ballybowden St Enda's player. Getting himself into difficulty there momentarily was Paul Flynn. Now James McCarthy striding forward purposefully. 3 Kerry men go to him. Weight of numbers counted there. Good fast start to the match.
Great ebb and flow to it altogether, Gerard. That time, I think it was James McCarthy got forward, but 3 Kerry players around him. Brosnan has got forward on a couple of occasions, lost the ball. What is noticed is that players who are hopping the ball's running away from them on the slippy surface.
James McCarthy. Forward as far as Alan Brogan here, trying to cut inside onto his left. And he's dragged that one.
In and Brendan Keeley, who is suspect on a high ball, did very well on that and prevented the ball going over the bar.
Kerry going again. Tomas O'Shea. He's got lots of space. He can carry it another 20 metres. Opting to fist it inside towards his captain. Cooper takes it well. Back in here towards Kieran O'Leary. Back to Cooper. Runs into Fitzsimons. Blocks his route to go. Difficulty there for O'Leary getting it up. Goes to Darren O'Sullivan instead, former captain. Out as far as Brian Sheehan, looking for latitude. 2 men after him, one of them Ger Brennan. And Brennan did enough, I think, just to put the pressure on him and force it left of the posts.
Yeah, that's great scramble defence by the Dublin team that time. And once again, Paul Flynn got in the tackle.
Interesting that all this while, Kieran Donaghy's operating around the middle of the park. This time, watching as Anthony Marr was fouled. Free kick to be taken by the 24-year-old from Duois into Kieran O'Leary. Doesn't play an orthodox left corner forward spot, tends to come out around the half-backs, makes angles for others. This is Michael Dara McCauley. Dublin need to hold on to the ball and start getting a few attacks together. Fitzsimons, about whom there was also a suspicion that he mightn't start the match because of a rumoured injury. Ger Brennan almost plays the libero role in the half-back line. James McCarthy now, second time to get forward. Booted in towards Connolly. Connolly was slipping, taken in by his marker, Tom O'Sullivan instead. Wily old fox, Anthony Marr. Back to Mark O'Shea. Tomas. Here's Donaghy. Moving forward out of half-back. And Kerry just hold possession. Owen Brosnan again. Kerry showing the maturity that comes from playing in all these All-Ireland finals over the years. Dublin have made an uncertain start. Here's Donegal Walsh looking for another one. Put under pressure, Cluxton comes, gets a good fist on it. Out towards Fitzsimons. In the end, gathered in there by Barry Cahill. Swept across to Paul Flynn here. They'll be expecting a big performance from the Fingolians player, and that ball's gone out of the sideline. Cluxton did well here.
Very well, came out very assured under the high ball that time. In fairness, O'Leary isn't the tallest of players, but was very decisive in getting the ball away.
Oh, Tom O'Sullivan almost got himself into difficulty there, doing his soloing out of defence. Instead, it's Tomas O'Shea. 77th championship match today. Hard to buy that kind of experience. Into Cooper. Dished off again towards O'Leary. On as far as Darren O'Sullivan steps away from Ger Brennan's challenge. Kerry hold it with assurance. Lobbed in there. Declan O'Sullivan is the menacing figure at full forward. Touchdown here. And as Donegal Walsh was coming onto it, couldn't quite get it under control. But there are so many Kerry options in attack.
Yeah, that was dangerous at that time, but very good scramble of defence once again by the Dublin lads in the full back line. In very quickly, anticipated the danger and forced Walsh to put the ball wide.
Well, Kerry have had the lion's share of it in the opening 8 minutes of this match, but only a point to show. Cluxton's kick out, usually very precise. He goes long this time. Brian Sheehan there jumping with Michael Dara McCauley, and trying to pick up the pieces was Kieran Donaghy. Was fouled by Bastick. Free kick quickly taken, in as far as Declan O'Sullivan, drifting away from Rory O'Carroll. He could cause this young fullback a lot of problems. Still touched on the ground, I think. Yes, it was. Free out.
The O'Carroll's having a great tussle at the moment with Declan O'Sullivan. He's sticking to his task very well, putting pressure on Declan O'Sullivan that time, who did touch the ball on the ground, and the referee, Joe McQuillan, gave the correct decision. Rory
O'Carroll, the fullback today, only 21 years of age. Great prospect. Goes short, Dublin, to Alan Brogan. Aidan O'Mahony trying to cut it out, going after it himself, rather scrambling after it. Barry Cahill out over the sideline. Line ball to Kerry. And a shoulder for afters as well for Cahill's trouble from the number 7 from Rathmore.
Yeah, Aidan O'Mahony in with the shoulder that time on Barry Cahill, forced the ball out over the line. Just giving him a second greeting there to remind him that he's around.
Timely reminder that Kerry are not going to be taken for granted, and that ball was scrambled for there by Owen Brosnan on the ground. Boot went out, and the referee signalled us that it's got to be a free kick. And the man who's going to take it will be Stephen Cluxton, who's got 10 points already in this year's championship, to go with 5 he's got already in his career. He's 4th highest scorer for Dublin in this year's championship.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Kerry in the way they have restructured their team. Donaghy, I thought, would just come out for the throw-in, but he's been at midfield since the beginning of the game. And Declan O'Sullivan is in at full forward, being marked by Rory O'Carroll, and over the first 10 minutes or so, they're having a great tussle.
But it means that Cian O'Sullivan, or one of the backs, is free at the other end. Cluxton shooting, and that's gone left of target. He's missed the opportunity. 3rd wide for Dublin. Crowd getting right behind both teams here, looking for a ding-dong final. And the players on both teams, by the way, have asked me to wish the best to Ireland's great rugby team, watching the final in the wee hours of New Zealand. Everybody thrilled with their performance yesterday. That's kicked out by Keeley again, but it's to a Dublin player, to Michael Dara McCauley. Outside of the boot, forward towards Bernard Brogan, taking on Mark O'Shea. That could be a tasty duel once again. Alan Brogan coming in here. Killian Young alongside him, gets the shot in. The crowd will tell you where it's gone over the bar. Alan Brogan getting Dublin's first. That's the trophy they're hoping to bring with them, a replica, but anyway, up in the Hill 16 today. But a lovely, well-constructed move there involving Bernard Brogan, finished off by Allen, and it's Dublin 1, Kerry 1.
Yeah, that was a great aerial shot, actually, of what happened that time. Killian Young is marking Alan Brogan, going 1-to-1 with him, but Brogan was confident with his own ability that time, shot a great opening score for them.
Again, it's Kieran Donaghy who wins the kick out there ahead of James McCarthy, and then is able to feed it to colleagues. Aidan O'Mahony fouled here by Paul Flynn. And the referee's going to bring the ball forward 13 metres, penalising Dublin yardage. And he's going to have a word as well with Paul Flynn. A bit early in the game to be picking up cautions from the referee.
Yeah, a little bit of inexperience that time on Paul Flynn's part. He got involved unnecessarily, I thought, with Kieran Donaghy, and has earned himself a yellow card very early in the game to be picking that up.
Well, Dublin will be hoping that he will be his usual hugely effective self, but that time he was leading with the hands, as you could see. Free kick, which Brian Sheehan's going to take just inside Dublin's 65-metre line. Ooh, that was precise, and it just skids on the ground here and away from Darren O'Sullivan, but the idea was so clever.
The idea was clever. Darren O'Sullivan has lost his marker very well, and that's probably down to the fact that Ger Brennan is marking the space in front of the D and not going one-to-one with Darren O'Sullivan.
Level pegging on the scoreboard as that kick out comes towards Barry Cahill. Instead it falls for Brian Cullen, the captain, and he was being fouled from behind by Anthony Marr. Free to Dublin. This to be taken by Barry Cahill. Well, he's got options inside. The two Brogans are waiting for it if it comes in their direction. Might via Kevin Nolan now in a moment. Quickly to react to it there was Brian Sheehan. Got it out as far as Tom O'Sullivan. Fisted further out here as far as Killian Young. He's playing out around the half-back line, wherever Alan Brogan goes. Darren O'Sullivan is off, two men after him. Good support play from Donaghy, almost like he's playing a basketball game, almost just staying there for a moment and considering his options. Anthony Marr, back out as far as Tomas O'Shea. Kerry, almost toying on occasions with this young Dublin team, still level on the scoreboard, however. O'Shea against Cullen, opting to kick it in the end, put under pressure, good pressure by Brian Cullen, out via Cluxton. Ger Brennan now to start the counter-attack, taking it back from Paul Flynn, out to Bastic. Oof, let it bounce rather nervously, under pressure immediately from his man who's Brian Sheehan. Line ball to Dublin, however. Dublin will be hoping to weather the early storm here. Point apiece. Just trying to find their feet in this final still. Paul Flynn, kicked in the end by Dennis Bastic. 1 against 3, and the one took it. That's Diarmuid Connolly. Chipped ahead neatly. Bernard Brogan, after him Mark O'Shea. Again, the ground not doing the players any great deal of favour. All the rain we had earlier on. Out by Anthony Marr eventually. Kerry hold to Tom O'Sullivan. There too is Donegal Walsh. Coming away as Anthony Marr. Slipped as far as Aidan O'Mahony. And eventually lost by Killian Young. Lost to Alan Brogan, who kicks and scores another. 2 in a row for Alan Brogan. And Dublin take the lead by 2 points to 1. And we're in the 15th minute.
Yeah, Kerry might feel aggrieved somewhat that Killian Young coming out with the ball that time was foul, but I think the referee was correct in letting the play go on, and Brogan's got the opportunity and took it superbly.
Prospects of a fascinating All-Ireland final. Free kick to Kerry, taken by Tomas O'Shea. Down here as far as Declan O'Sullivan, holding off the challenges of a couple of Dublin players, one of them Kevin Nolan on the ground. It's got to be a free kick.
Yeah, there's an interesting tactical issue going on at the moment with Dublin, or with Kerry as well. Anthony Maher is playing very far back in his half-back line, and I think Donaghy has moved to wing forward.
The hand there of Declan O'Sullivan was what made contact with Kevin Nolan. Just coming back here, there you are. I don't think he intended it. His hand was coming back. Probably didn't know where the Dublin player was.
Wasn't intentional.
Giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly, trying to brush him off somewhat, but definitely caught Kevin Nolan in the face.
So Tomas O'Shea will take it. Now only 4 championship appearances behind his brother Dara. Race for possession here. Eventually kicked in by Anthony Marr. Donaghy now watches. There's nothing he can do about it as the ball again skids on the turf, and that's a 4th wide.
Either inside men at all, which is most unlike them.
This is towards Flynn, but this time it's taken down and won there by Owen Brosnan. I think Kerry have been watching the videos of Dublin because they target Paul Flynn so often from those kickouts by Cluxton. But Dublin have it back. Ger Brennan going long, inside towards Diarmuid Connolly, fisted away by Tom O'Sullivan. Other players then to pick up the pieces, this time Tomás O'Shea, onto Darren O'Sullivan. This man has got great pace. Here he goes! Dished off here beautifully. What a goal! That's an absolute peach. And it's the captain who's got it. And it's scored in the 19th minute. And once again, it was the pace of Darren O'Sullivan that cut open the Dublin defence. He knifed his way through. Wonderful run, a penetrating move, dished off to Cooper at the precise time, and what a finish. And it's now 1-1 to 2 points.
Cooper's wonderful dropping off that time, getting into the correct position to receive the pass, but Darren O'Sullivan, like a knife through butters, the way he went through the Dublin defence. That was a magnificent constructed goal and executed goal. Great response from Kerry.
Now let's see what the quick response from Dublin's going to be. Rocked by the concession of that. Michael Darla-McCauley kicking it in. Alan Brogan goes racing after it, but it's going to beat everybody for pace once again. And the place still humming as a result of what was Colm Cooper's 18th ever championship goal.
Yes, Gas in the semi-final against Mayo, he scored 1-7, haven't had quite enough first half, but just watch the timing of that pass and the way Cooper just side-footed it into the corner. That's precision personified. Beautiful execution by Cooper.
It's like as if he's just passing it past the goalkeeper. Back in the middle of the park, Dublin win it. And this time it's Barry Cahill who's fouled by Owen.